Aquarius, this message is for you. If you've been sensing that the next conversation won't be loud, won't be dramatic, but will change how you see everything, you're in the right place. Because this time you won't be trying to explain yourself. You won't be proving anything. You'll be listening less and seeing more. If your intuition has been getting quieter yet sharper, if you already feel like you know what's coming even before it's said, this reading is meeting you right on time. Before we begin, ground yourself for a moment. And if you're open to receiving, comment this simple sentence below: I'm ready to see clearly. In the next moments, we're stepping into a conversation where silence speaks louder than words, and Aquarius, you may realize you already hold the answer. Take a breath with me for a moment. I want you to imagine this not as a conversation that hasn't happened yet, but as a feeling that's already beginning to settle inside you. Because when you step into this next exchange, you're not arriving with urgency. You're not arriving with a script. You're arriving with presence. There's a calm around you now, a quiet kind of confidence. The kind that doesn't need to be announced. You notice it in your body first. Your shoulders feel lower, your breath feels slower. Your mind isn't racing ahead trying to predict every outcome. You're simply here, and that's new. Not because you don't care anymore, but because you finally trust yourself enough to let the moment reveal what it needs to reveal. You're not searching for the right words. You're watching the space between words. The pauses, the hesitations, the way energy shifts when something true gets close to the surface. You don't interrupt. You don't rush to fill the silence. You let it breathe. And in that silence, you hear more than you ever could in noise. You sense when something lands. You feel when something doesn't. There's a subtle tightening in your chest when a sentence doesn't align. A quiet ease when something finally makes sense. You're not judging. You're recognizing. That's the difference. This isn't about catching anyone in a lie. It's about noticing what feels whole and what feels fragmented. Aquarius, this is where your strength lies. In the ability to stay open without losing clarity. To stay compassionate without abandoning truth. You're not trying to control how this conversation goes. You're allowing it to show you what it is. And that takes courage. Because it means you're willing to see things as they are, not as they could be, not as they once were, not as you hoped they might become. Just as they are. You might find yourself speaking less than usual, not out of distance but out of discernment. Every word you choose now carries weight, and you know it. So you let the other person speak. You let them reveal their rhythm, their intention, their readiness, and you stay steady. There's a quiet intelligence guiding you here, a meeting point between logic and intuition, between knowing and feeling. This is not detachment, this is maturity. You've learned that clarity doesn't come from pushing, it comes from listening deeply and trusting what rises when you do. As the moment unfolds, something begins to settle inside you. Not a conclusion, not a decision, just a deeper understanding. And that understanding, it doesn't arrive loudly. It arrives like a light turning on in a room you didn't realize was dark. Soft, certain, undeniable. Stay with that feeling. Because from here, everything that follows will make more sense than you expect. And as you stay there grounded, quiet, something subtle begins to shift. You realize you're not actually waiting for answers anymore. You're watching how truth moves. This conversation, it isn't about winning a point or making yourself understood at all costs. It's about awareness. You start noticing things you used to overlook. The way their voice changes when they touch something real. How their breathing shortens or softens depending on what they say. You don't stare. You don't analyze aggressively. You simply notice. There's a calm alertness in you now, like standing by a window at night watching the city lights without needing to step outside. You feel how your body responds while they speak. A gentle openness in your chest or a quiet contraction that tells you something doesn't quite land. You trust those signals. Not because you're suspicious, but because you've learned that your body speaks long before your mind catches up. If this exchange happens through messages, you sense the rhythm there too. How quickly they respond, where they hesitate. When a sentence feels carefully chosen and when it feels spontaneous. You notice the pauses between replies, the energy behind a simple word, the difference between effort and presence. You're not counting, you're feeling. This is important. Because you're no longer trying to steer the moment, you're allowing it to show you its natural shape. There's something liberating about that. You don't need to interrupt. You don't need to correct. You don't need to jump in and fill the air. You let the silence do some of the work. And silence, it has a way of revealing intention. You start to see patterns instead of statements, consistency instead of promises, alignment instead of emotion alone. This isn't distance, it's discernment. You're not closing your heart, you're protecting your clarity. And the more present you become, the clearer everything feels. It's almost as if time slows down for you in this moment, each detail arriving with precision. each reaction teaching you something. You realize how powerful it is to stay grounded while someone else speaks. How much truth comes through when you stop trying to manage the outcome. There's no urgency here. No pressure to decide anything right now. Just information arriving exactly when it needs to. And somewhere inside you a quiet voice says this is what alignment feels like. Not dramatic, not overwhelming, just steady.
Clear.
You stay with that feeling, because the more you allow yourself to remain here, fully present, fully aware, the more the moment begins to unfold on its own. And what reveals itself next won't require effort to understand. It will simply be known. And somewhere in the middle of all this listening, something deeper begins to happen. It's subtle, almost easy to miss if you're not paying attention. While they're speaking, there's another stream moving quietly inside you. You hear their words, but you're also receiving something else. A knowing, not loud, not dramatic, just clear. It's as if two conversations are happening at once. One in the room, one inside your chest. And the inner one, it doesn't argue. It doesn't rush. It simply informs you. You notice that you're quieter than usual, not withdrawn, not checked out, just still. There are moments where you pause longer than expected, where silence stretches a little wider, not because you're searching for what to say, but because something inside you is settling. You're letting truth land. You've learned that clarity doesn't always arrive as a thought. Sometimes it arrives as a sensation, a warmth, a tightening, a calm certainty that doesn't need explanation. And you trust that now. This is an Aquarius gift, the ability to stay present without drowning in emotion, to feel deeply without losing perspective. You're not cold here, you're conscious. You can feel empathy for what they're expressing and still remain anchored in yourself. That balance, it didn't come overnight. It came from lessons. From moments where you spoke too quickly. From times you ignored your intuition and paid the price later. You remember those moments now, not with regret, but with respect for how far you've come. As they continue talking, you start noticing how certain words create resonance, while others pass through without impact. You don't react immediately. You let the information settle like sediment in water, and slowly the picture becomes clearer. You're not gathering evidence. You're allowing understanding. There's no urgency to respond. No pressure to resolve anything right now. You're honoring the intelligence of timing. And timing has always been one of your quiet teachers. You realize something important here. You don't need every answer today. You just need honesty in the moment. Your intuition isn't asking you to judge. It's asking you to observe with compassion and remain loyal to your inner truth. That's strength. And as the conversation breathes, as words rise and fall, you feel yourself becoming more centered, less pulled, less reactive, more aligned. You recognize this state. It's the place you return to when you stop outsourcing your clarity and come back home to yourself. Stay here, because from this grounded awareness, what unfolds next won't feel confusing or overwhelming. It will feel natural, almost inevitable. Like the moment just before dawn when the sky hasn't changed yet, but you know the light is already on its way, and then you feel it. The shift. They arrive with momentum, with words stacked on top of each other, with a kind of urgency that fills the space quickly. You can sense it the moment they begin. There's intensity there, not chaos, but pressure. As if they've been carrying something for a while and now it all wants to come out at once. They speak with conviction, they emphasize certain points, they circle back, they explain, they clarify. You can hear how much this matters to them. There may be talk of change, of doing things differently, of lessons learned. There may be an ache in their voice when they speak about repair, about wanting to make things right, about not wanting to lose what still feels meaningful. Sometimes they reach forward in time, talking about what could be, what they see ahead, what they imagine is possible, and sometimes they offer promises, clear ones, strong ones. You let them speak. You don't interrupt the flow. You don't challenge every detail. You simply hold your ground. Because while their energy is loud, yours is steady. And that steadiness, it does something interesting. It creates contrast. You can feel the difference between motion and alignment, between intensity and truth, between wanting something badly and being ready to live it consistently. You notice how their words land in your body, not just what they say, but how it feels when they say it. There's a part of you that recognizes effort, and another part that listens for authenticity. You don't judge either. You just observe. You understand now that passion doesn't always equal stability, and strong declarations don't always mean deep readiness. That awareness, it keeps you anchored. You're not dismissive. You're not impressed either. You're present. And presence is powerful. As they continue, you realize something quietly important. You don't need to match their energy. You don't need to rise to their intensity. You don't need to promise anything back. Your calm is not distance. It's discernment. You allow their words to move through the space while you remain connected to yourself. There's compassion here. But there's also clarity. You can care without being carried away. And that balance, it changes the entire dynamic. The more grounded you stay, the more the conversation reveals itself. Not through volume, but through consistency, through tone, through what feels sustainable, not just exciting. You remain quietly attentive, not waiting to respond, but listening for what truly matters. And as the energy settles, as the pace naturally slows, you begin to sense what this moment is really about. Not persuasion, not performance, but truth meeting stillness. Stay right there. Because from this calm center, what unfolds next won't need to be forced. It will simply arrive. What becomes clear to you now is that listening does not mean believing. You hear every word they offer. You let the sentences arrive fully. You respect the effort behind them. But something in you has changed. You are no longer moved by sound alone. You are guided by resonance. As they speak, you feel into the space behind their words. You notice whether their energy stays steady or fades once the sentence ends. You don't dismiss what they're saying. You take it in carefully, almost gently. But you also check in with yourself. How does your body respond? Do your shoulders soften? Does your breath deepen? Or do you feel that quiet tension you've learned not to ignore? This is where your power lives now. You compare what you hear with what you sense. Not out of doubt, but out of respect for your own intelligence. You've learned that words can be sincere and still incomplete. That promises can be beautiful and still untested. So you stay present. You allow the conversation to continue without rushing toward agreement or resolution. You remember the past. Not emotionally, but honestly. You recall patterns. Moments where words once sounded right, but actions arrived differently. You don't hold this against anyone. You simply include it in the truth. This is not cynicism. This is wisdom earned through experience. You are no longer choosing based on potential alone. You are choosing based on alignment. There is a calm confidence in this place. A grounded knowing that you don't need to decide everything now. You are allowed to observe. You are allowed to feel. You are allowed to wait. You understand something deeply here. Consistency speaks louder than passion. Presence matters more than performance, and energy never lies. You let their words pass through you without clinging, without resisting. You don't promise anything back. You don't mirror their intensity. You stay honest, mostly with yourself. There's a quiet strength in that. You realize how far you've come, from moments where you tried to believe harder to moments where you finally learned to listen inward. This is self-respect, not distance, not fear, just clarity. You don't need to prove that you understand. You don't need to explain why you're taking your time. Your presence already says enough. As the exchange continues, you feel yourself settling even deeper into alignment. Less pulled by expectation, less swayed by emotion, more rooted in truth. And from this place, the path forward begins to reveal itself. Not through urgency, not through pressure, but through a quiet recognition that whatever unfolds next will meet you exactly where you stand. At some point, the conversation naturally moves away from the surface. You can feel it when that happens. The tone shifts. The air feels heavier, more honest. This is no longer small talk, no polite exchange. No words offered just to keep things light. Something real is being placed between you now. You begin to speak about direction, not dramatically, not with pressure, just honestly. Where is this connection actually going? Not in theory, not in hope, but in reality. You feel the weight of that question as it hangs in the space. Not uncomfortable, necessary. There is a quiet courage in asking it, and an even deeper courage in being willing to hear the answer. You notice how balance becomes part of the conversation, not as an accusation, but as an observation. You reflect on effort, on energy, on who has been holding more than their share for a long time. There may be moments where you acknowledge how much you've given. Not to keep score, but to be truthful with yourself. You might name the times you felt unseen, the moments where your needs were set aside, the quiet exhaustion that comes from always being the strong one. You don't dramatize it. You don't minimize it either. You let it exist. And that alone feels relieving. You realize how rarely you've allowed these feelings to sit in the open. How often you carried them silently, assuming understanding would eventually arrive on its own. Now you let them breathe. There may be talk of fairness, of emotional reciprocity, of whether this connection truly nourishes both people involved. Not just one. You listen carefully to how this is received. Not just the words that come back, but the energy behind them. Is there openness? Is there accountability? Is there space for mutual growth? You're not searching for perfection. You're looking for willingness. There's a moment here where something important happens inside you. You realize you're no longer afraid of these conversations. They used to feel like risk. Like you might lose something by speaking honestly. Now they feel like clarity. You understand that avoiding truth never protected you. It only delayed the inevitable. Speaking from this grounded place feels different. There's no desperation in it. No fear of abandonment driving your words. Just self-respect. You recognize how much strength it takes to bring heavy topics into the light without turning them into weapons. That strength is part of your growth. Part of what makes you who you are now. As the conversation continues, you feel lighter even as the topics remain serious. Because pressure loses its grip once it's named. What once weighed on you now feels shared. And in that shared space, something begins to loosen. Not everything resolves immediately. It doesn't need to. What matters is that truth is no longer hiding. You stay present, steady, open. And as the words settle, as the moment softens, you sense that something essential has shifted. Not outwardly, but within. And that inner shift, it quietly prepares you for what the heart is ready to recognize next. And then it happens. Not suddenly, not dramatically. Just a quiet moment where something inside you settles. It might come in the middle of a sentence, or right after they finish speaking, or during a pause that lasts a second longer than expected. You feel it before you think it. A soft internal click, like a door closing gently, or a light turning on in a room you have walked through many times in the dark. You find yourself thinking, I see it now, not with disappointment, not with relief, with clarity. The confusion that once lingered no longer has a place to stand. You are no longer guessing, no longer filling in gaps with hope or fear. You see what is real because it feels steady, grounded, consistent. You also see what only sounds good, what carries beautiful language but lacks weight when it lands. And for the first time, that difference feels obvious. There is something deeply peaceful about this moment. You are not angry with what does not align. You are not attached to what almost fits. You simply recognize it. You notice what feels nourishing, what invites healing instead of exhaustion, what allows you to breathe more fully rather than hold yourself tight. You also notice what quietly drains you, what asks you to shrink, what requires too much explanation or too much patience at the cost of yourself. This clarity does not demand action right away. It does not push you to confront or decide. It just sits with you solid, calm, unshakable. You realize something important here. Understanding does not always come from answers. Sometimes it comes from alignment, from noticing how your body relaxes when truth is present, from feeling how your chest opens when something is meant for you, and how it closes when it is not. You are not blaming anyone in this moment. You are not assigning fault. You are honoring your own awareness. That is growth. That is maturity. You see clearly now without needing to convince yourself of anything. What can heal feels honest and mutual. It carries warmth. It invites time. What no longer fits does not feel cruel or wrong. It simply feels complete. Like a chapter that does not need revisiting. There is gratitude here, even for the things you are ready to release, because they taught you how to listen to yourself. You feel steady in this knowing, not rigid, not closed, just clear. And that clarity, it does not rush you forward. It allows you to stand exactly where you are without doubt. You stay with this feeling. Let it anchor you. Because when truth arrives this gently, it is not here to disrupt you. It is here to guide you into what feels honest and sustainable and real. And as the moment breathes, as silence returns in its own way, you sense that what comes from this clarity will unfold naturally, without force, without fear, without confusion. Just presence. And now that you can see clearly, there is no need to close your heart. Clarity does not require hardness. It requires honesty. So I want you to stay open. Not open in a way that makes you vulnerable to confusion again, but open in a way that keeps you human. Because you are allowed to hold more than one truth at the same time. You can understand someone and still choose what is healthy for you. You can have compassion without sacrificing your standards. You can love the memory of what something was without trying to force it to become something it is not. That is emotional maturity, and you have earned it. This conversation, it is not here to push you into a dramatic decision. It is not here to make you return or leave or prove anything. It is here to locate you, to show you where you stand, not where you wish you stood, not where you fear you stand, where you actually stand. And it shows you something else too, where they are, not by what they promise, but by what they are ready to live. Not by how intense their feelings sound, but by how consistent their energy remains. That is the measure. And I know for an Aquarius, heart consistency means safety, not control, not predictability. Safety, the kind of safety that lets you breathe, the kind that lets you build, the kind that lets love be simple again. So let yourself take this in slowly. You do not need to make a decision tonight. You do not need to text back immediately. You do not need to explain your pace. Your pace is wisdom. And if you feel that familiar urge to rush, to fix, to rescue, to smooth everything over, pause. Ask yourself one honest question. What would I choose if I trusted myself completely? Let that question sit with you. Because when you choose from fear, you abandon your center. When you choose from blind hope, you trade your truth for a story. But when you choose from clarity, you become free. Not free from feeling, but free from confusion. And that freedom, it changes everything. It changes how you speak. It changes what you tolerate. It changes what you invite into your life. You become the kind of person who does not beg for balance. You become the kind of person who naturally lives in it. And this matters beyond relationships. Because the way you honor your own truth teaches other people how to honor theirs. It is how healing spreads, quietly, through example, through one person deciding to stop abandoning themselves. So take your time, let the clarity guide you, let the softness protect you. You are not late, you are not behind. You are right on time for the version of you who finally understands what you deserve. And as you carry this knowing with you, you will notice something simple. You are no longer searching for a sign. You have become one. You do not need to hurry. You have already seen enough. Before we part tonight, I want you to notice something quietly powerful. You made it here not because you were searching for answers, but because you were ready to hear yourself. That matters. Because Aquarius, the truth is not that you needed clarity from this message. The truth is you already carried it. This conversation, this silence, this awareness you've been feeling was never about them alone. It was about you remembering how it feels to trust your own knowing without apology. If something inside you softened tonight, if your breath slowed, if a quiet yes settled in your chest, that's not coincidence. That's alignment. And if this message spoke to you, leave a comment below, just one simple line. I trust myself now. It helps anchor the energy. For you. And for every Aquarius who finds this space after you. If you're not already subscribed, stay with us. This channel isn't about predictions. It's about presence. It's about learning how to listen when life speaks softly. And trust me, the journey doesn't end here. Another message is already forming. Another insight is already on its way, meeting you exactly where you'll be next. Until then, carry this with you. You don't need to rush. You don't need to prove anything. You saw clearly. And that changes everything. Good night, Aquarius. The path ahead is already responding to you.